Charlie Kirk was worth $12 million at the time of his death on September 10th, 2025. By almost any measure, that's remarkable. His parents did not give him money. He didn't have a traditional business background. He didn't invent anything. He didn't build a company in the conventional sense. The college debates his supporters are proud of did not generate revenue worth $12 million. His YouTube channels and podcasts were not his major source of income. Many college-educated people do not earn $12 million in their lifetime. So where did this college dropout get his millions? There is another fundamental question. How did a guy with just a high school diploma and no professional credentials become the head of an organization that generates $85 million annually in revenue? We should not call that revenue because it's more of donations. This is not an inspiring rags to riches story. This particular story reveals something uncomfortable about how conservative politics and money actually work in modern America. In 2012, when Kirk was just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA with virtually no track record and no network. It was a campus activist group, nothing revolutionary, nothing that inherently suggested future dominance. He made his first contact at RNC event, who gave him $10,000 as seed money. This is the beginning of a career where rich donors donate their money to a loudmouth young man who parrots all conservative talking points with heavy racism. In 2016 to 2017, TPUSA was pulling in about $8 million in annual revenue. That's decent, but hardly empire level. Kirk was talented at self-promotion, sure, but talent alone doesn't scale a political operation from a small conservative group into a machine with 500,000 donors and chapters across 300-plus campuses. Something had to change. And in 2019, something did. Jerry Falwell Jr. and Kirk launched the Falkirk Center at Liberty University, a supposed think tank for conservative Christian values. On the surface, it looked like a genuine intellectual partnership. In reality, it was a masterclass in institutional leverage. Here's what Kirk got: access to Liberty University's massive donor network, legitimacy within evangelical circles, a platform to reach millions of young conservative students, credibility that you can't buy. You can only inherit or marry into through institutional connections. TPUSA revenue, $28.5 million in 2018, then $40 million in 2019 after the Falkirk partnership. Revenue continued to climb. $56 million in 2020, $81 million in 2021, and $85 million in 2024. That's not linear growth. That's an acceleration curve that directly correlates with Falwell's institutional backing. Liberty University didn't just lend credibility. The Evangelical Donor Network, the same network that had been enriching Falwell Jr. for decades, now had a new, younger vehicle to support. And they did, enthusiastically. Here's how it actually worked. First, Falwell Jr. provided institutional legitimacy. Liberty University, a school with 150,000 plus students, became a launching pad. Every conservative, high-profile speaker came through Liberty and Falkirk. Sebastian Gorka, Eric Metaxas, Jenna Ellis. When you're associated with those events at a major Christian university, you're not just a political operator. You're a serious intellectual figure. Second, Falwell Jr. opened doors to evangelical mega-donors. People who had backed Liberty for decades now had a youth-oriented alternative. Third, and crucially, the donations came with a veil of anonymity. Donor-advised funds and charitable foundations meant the ultra-wealthy could support TPUSA without their names being attached. The original source stayed hidden, legally compliant, perfectly normal in conservative philanthropic circles, but fundamentally designed to obscure where the money was actually coming from. This is what happens when you don't tax the rich enough. They feel emboldened to funnel millions to a white nationalist like Charlie Kirk. By 2020, 10 anonymous donors dramatically increased TPUSA's revenue, transforming it into a political powerhouse. This is where the analysis gets sharp. The Falkirk Center wasn't a think tank. Think tanks produce research, scholars, published papers, ideas that get debated in academic circles. The Falkirk Center produced propaganda videos, podcasts, and pro-Trump Facebook ads. It spent $50,000 on Facebook ads alone in 2020. One Liberty graduate described its approach as prioritizing lust for the culture war over concern for the culture. Conservative writer Rod Dreher called it Hooters conservatism, noting that at TPUSA events, women in tight-fitting outfits literally shot cash into crowds from cannons. This was the intellectual content coming out of the institution that supposedly provided Kirk his legitimacy, and here's the kicker. It worked, because the Falkirk Center's job wasn't to win debates about conservative philosophy. Its job was to create a visually compelling, highly shareable, emotionally resonant version of culture war activism that would drive engagement, donations, and loyalty among young conservatives. It did exactly that. It succeeded until August 2020, when Jerry Falwell Jr. resigned. His relationship with his wife's affair with a pool boy became public. Jerry Falwell Jr. was a known creep even before that scandal broke. Look at this photo with his pants unbuttoned. In that scandal, we came to know his wife was also a pervert like him. There were also allegations of financial scandal. The man who had provided Kirk institutional legitimacy was gone, disgraced. By 2020, TPUSA was generating $56 million annually, and Kirk did not need Falwell Jr. anymore. Kirk had leveraged the initial partnership to build his own donor network, his own brand, his own institutional presence. When Liberty decided not to renew Kirk's contract in 2021, renaming the Falkirk Center to Standing for Freedom Center, Kirk simply walked away. He didn't need Liberty anymore. TPUSA had graduated from the institutional partnership phase to the independent operation phase. By 2024, TPUSA still pulled in $85 million annually. So how did Charlie Kirk make $12 million? Not through innovation, not through building something unprecedented, not through genuine intellectual contribution, through access to institutional power, evangelical money networks, and a willingness to package culture war messaging as serious conservative thought. To put it in simple terms, it was glorified begging. He found the gap between what conservatives wanted, straightforward, emotionally satisfying validation of their worldview, and what they were getting from traditional institutions. Then he filled it with Falwell's leverage. The Falwell partnership was the accelerant. It transforms TPUSA from a moderately successful activist group into a machine that could generate tens of millions of dollars annually by providing what conservative donors desperately wanted to buy: a sense of winning the culture war. Kirk didn't invent this model, but he executed it better than almost anyone else. He understood that in modern conservative politics, the money flows not to those who think most clearly, but to those who can best convince an aging, wealthy evangelical donor class that their culture is being defended and that they're funding the warriors on the front lines. Falwell Jr. gave him the platform. The Evangelical Donor Network provided the capital. Kirk provided the personality and the message. And what did they all get? An entire generation of young people who blame their problems like job loss and inflation on women, Muslims, people of color, LGBTQ members, and immigrants. That's not a conspiracy. That's just how money actually moves through conservative politics. When you look at Kirk's $12 million net worth, you're not looking at a self-made success story. You're looking at a graphic example of how institutional relationships, donor networks, and message alignment can generate enormous wealth in American politics. The system works if you know how to access it. Kirk knew how, and he got very rich.